What's up, guys? We got a lot to get through, so we're gonna just dive in. We're looking at May symbols. I have got a whole bunch of websites here that I'm gonna try and run us through. It's a veritable gauntlet. We've got this first one where it's just gonna sort of outline what we are looking at specifically here. And then we've got a grand total of 6 other pages. I've got 6 other tabs open that I'm going to try and run us through. So, in May, looking at the zodiac signs, the gemstone, the flowers, and trees, we've got Taurus until May 20, followed by Gemini, there onwards. The emerald, which symbolizes love and success, and the deep green stone is thought to bring foresight, good fortune, and youth to the wearer. It's a symbol of rebirth and new beginnings, and therefore an appropriate symbol of spring. The flower, lily of the valley. Lily of the valley represents sweetness and humility, purity of heart and honor. And the trees, poplar, chestnut, and ash, which I can already tell you are the trees that appear throughout May on the Druidic Celtic tree sign zodiac. We will be getting into that later in the year once I've literally exhausted every other avenue, because it's going to sort of become its own what am I trying to say? Series. It's going to become its own series when I get to it, and I want to not be completely loading myself up with all of these different series right from the get-go. We'll wait till some of them are coming to their end, or at least half done, before we start getting into that one, just for some longevity. I'm going to jump in very quickly to begin with, because I know that the larger part's going to be the zodiac signs. So I'm going to jump in very quickly, starting at the bottom, working our way up. So we've already talked about the trees. We're going to get into that in a little bit more depth. Already discussed that. So, flower, lily of the valley. Now, before we get into this, Wikipedia also does mention the hawthorn tree as one of its flowers. The common hawthorn being one of its, and the mayflower, which kind of makes sense. It's the May flower. That's its name. But going with lily of the valley, which represented sweetness, is kind of ironically a highly poisonous woodland plant. It's sweetly scented and has pendant bell-shaped white flowers, and is native to the cooler temperate, like the cooler temperatures of Asia and Europe. It is possibly the only species in the genus Convallaria of the asparagus family. And other names include Maybelle's, Our Lady's Tears, or Mary's Tears. Its French name, Mugo. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't speak French, so I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. I only know sort of the basics of how some of their vowels work together, and sound, stuff like that. But its French name sometimes appears in the names of perfumes which imitate the flower's scent. In pre-modern England, the plant was known as glovewort, as it was a wort used to create a salve for sore hands, or Apollinaris, according to a legend that it was discovered by Apollo. So yeah, that's kind of cool. We're not going to get too much into all these other stuff. Trying to see if it has, there we are, cultural symbolism. Let's just go with this top bit without getting too into like Christian traditions or anything. So it's the national flower of Yugoslavia, and also became the national flower of Finland in 1967. In the language of flowers, the lily of the valley signifies the return of happiness. In terms of musical influence, Lily of the Valley is also a song by Queen on their album Sheer Heart Attack. Lily of the Valley was featured in the TV show Breaking Bad, as it was used by Walter White as a naturally occurring poison. And it also featured in the TV show Outlander, where a boy mistook it with wood garlic and poisoned himself by eating the plant. There are some Christian traditions here as well on the Wikipedia page, one of which says that is a symbol of humility in religious paintings, and it's considered the sign of Christ's second coming. So May babies, let that go to your head if you will. The Mayflower, or trailing arbutus, which is a really well thought out name. The Latin word for wood or plant, it's one of those two, is arbor, which arbutus would come from. But it's a low spreading shrub found in from Newfoundland to Florida, as far west as Kentucky and the Northwest Territories. Let's skip down to its symbolism. It's the floral emblem of both Nova Scotia and Massachusetts, and digging one up in Massachusetts is punishable with a $50 fine. And that's all we've got there for its symbolism. We do, however, have some use among Native Americans. If that interests you, I will leave that to be read as well. Like I said, we're going to try and sprint through this. I don't have my... I don't need it. We'll just talk about the Hawthorn here. Now, this website, we got CelticRadio.net, does list that the first 12 days of May, of the 5th month, the willow tree. They come under the willow tree. But I'm going to talk about the Hawthorn here because the site I'm going to be using for the other, once I get into doing this particular zodiac, for one reason or another, does not have Hawthorn listed, at least not that I could see when I checked earlier. But the Hawthorn is a symbol of psychic protection due to its sharp thorns. It's also generally seen as a tree which would bring good luck to the owner and prosperity to the land upon which it stands. It belongs to the trilogy of sacred Irish trees, the other two being oak and ash. It's interesting that oak is one of their sacred trees because it was also sacred to the Greeks, where it was one of Zeus's symbols. So the oak tree definitely is a very powerful tree when it comes to looking at the magic of things. Fairy spirits were believed to dwell in hawthorn hedges, which were planted as protective shrubs around fields, houses and churchyards. The hawthorn was once thought to offer psychic protection to the traveller. The twigs would frequently be used as a curative for depression. That's what I need then. And the powdered seeds were used to cure gallstones. Often used for walking sticks and to make fires, the hawthorn also formed the maypole around which the Celts would dance at Beltane. Now, I know I didn't talk about maypoles during my Beltane video, but it's basically the big posts that just stick in the ground and you sort of nail a whole bunch of ribbons to the top and you sort of dance around it in a circle until the ribbons sort of come around it. I think they have one in the party scene in Fellowship of the Ring. Pretty sure there's one at Bilbo's party scene. And you can sort of see him dancing around, like you can sort of see some young hobbits dancing around it. But if not, I hope you know what I'm talking about. I'm not crazy. The hawthorn was associated with both the sacred and the unlucky, some holding the belief that it was from the hawthorn that the crown of thorns used at the crucifixion of Christ was made, for example. I was just thinking that myself. If it's like a symbol of psychic protection, and supposed to be bringing good luck and prosperity, surely as a symbol to the people of the time, putting that on someone who was supposed to have brought good luck and prosperity to his people, the Jews, and also be, sort of there to protect them, sort of like, and save them from their own sins. I can see it being used as like a joke, like, yeah, no, you're not saving anyone because you're about to die. And obviously within that religion and that mythology, he proved them wrong by becoming a zombie. Where were we? To destroy this tree was to incur great peril to the individual who was responsible for such an act. The hawthorn is embodied in the character of the chief giant. It's a Welsh word, which is why I'm having trouble even struggling to understand how I would begin to. Isbadaden? Yeah, we're gonna go with that. That seems to be what it says. Of Colwick and Olwen. As a guardian figure who attempts to protect the virginity of Olwen, he is felled and the blooms of summer soon open. Thus the hawthorn symbolised the advance of summer and the defeat of winter. In ancient times, young girls would rise at dawn in order to bathe in dew gathered from hawthorn flowers, thus ensuring their beauty for the coming year. The blossoms, especially the white variety, were also used to decorate halls and worn as crowns by maidens in wedding ceremonies. And the Celts believed the hawthorn could assist in releasing negative and/or blocked energy held within. This page has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half. The half being a paragraph that's like 1.5 lines. So if you want to read that, the link is below. We're moving on because, like I said, the Zodiac stuff is sort of where all of this starts to come together. So before we get to that, quickly just going through talking about the emerald. Again, we're coming up our list. We're at the gemstone, the birthstone, which is the emerald, also known as the jewel of the kings, and it encompasses not only royalty but also wit, eloquence, and foresight. The one notable royal historical figure is Cleopatra, and it may be because of her that the emerald has such a connection to royalty. The ancients considered these gemstones as sacred symbols of fertility and immortality, and obviously knowing that, in those days, if you had a child, your dynasty would continue with them, and obviously not wanting to die so that you can continue being the queen or the king. Yeah, of course, this is going to end up being associated with royalty. They're going to go out of their way to have a symbol to make sure that they're very fertile and they can, have heirs to carry on their name and their dynasty, but also immortality and not having to die. I think everybody wants that. So reportedly, Cleopatra adorned herself and her palace with emeralds and also gave them as gifts to foreign dignitaries, likely intended as a display of her wealth and power. Interesting that she adorned her palace as well. Could be seen maybe as like wanting her land to be fertile as well, maybe, or anyone that sort of steps in would then get that fertility energy from it. People believed emeralds could confer riches, power, and eloquence if worn as talismans. They purportedly also strengthened memory and sharpened wits, and its most valuable power was perhaps bestowing the ability to predict future events. Now this isn't like you're going to know what the lotto numbers exactly are going to be, in 2 years' time. You can't. It's not like that. It's having a plan of how something's going to pan out and being able to sort of predict the most likely obstacles you're going to come up in that course of action. So like if you do a particular thing to a person, they're going to want, revenge, or if you do a particular thing for a person, they're probably going to, at a future point, return the favour to help you as well. But I mean, that just sort of goes without saying. If you do things to people, they're going to do things back to you. If you do things for people, they're going to do things for you as well. Historically, Arab, Hindu and Spanish physicians have used emeralds to protect against poison, infection and dysentery, as well as many people believed it could protect against possession by demons. Its soothing colour was thought to be restful to eyes under strain, and that it could reputedly cut through illusions and spells, including the truth or falsity of a lover's oath. It was believed to be able to dampen lust, perhaps because it was able to clear your mind's eye enough to be able to see the truth about your object of the objects of your affections. And so not only was it restful to your mind's eye in regards to relationships, but many gem cutters also would have emeralds on their workbenches, and after spending many hours shaping other gemstones for rings and pendants and stuff like that, they would look at the emerald because it was thought to help rest their eyes. And the last bit on this page that I'm going to talk about, because again, all these sites just go on and on and on. There's so much into this, and you can find it all out for yourself by just going into this description and reading past where I've read. But similar to Cleopatra having emeralds in her palace, El Dorado was also thought to not only be a city of gold, but also of valuable jewels, and so emeralds would be in that. Many ancient tales about India tell of mysterious and legendary cities of fabulous wealth, with walls or entire temples made of emeralds or rubies, sapphires, diamonds, gold, silver, other precious materials. Images of abundant plants with leaves dripping emeralds and rubies suggested those lucky and virtuous enough to locate those cities would find heavenly jewels as their reward. Stories like this spread across Europe, and of course when the Spaniards arrived in the Americas for the first time and discovered their abundance of emeralds and gold, because the native tribes were not really as industrial as Europe was at the time, and so weren't really mining these things out of the ground. So the Spaniards get there knowing about industry, start digging, find emeralds and gold, and think that they've landed in these treasure cities of legend, which also there sort of explains between this mythology that they believed, as well as the skin color of Native Americans being similar to that of actual Indians, like Hindu Indians. It makes sense why they just assumed that they'd traveled around the world, and by going west had ended up in the east. We now know that that's not what happened, but they were going to the New World, the unexplored part of the map. They had sort of asked themselves what was west of Westeros and gone. Cool, so now that we've sort of looked at all of that, we know what our flowers mean, we know what our gemstones mean. What are the symbols though of our star signs? of our zodiacs. And how do they correlate? Okay. So, for Taurus, it's so we've already looked at Taurus in the Taurus video. You can go and just check that out if you want to know the majority of what I'm going to talk about here. But it's the second sign of the zodiac, and so it lines up with the second house, which, as we already know, is the house of value, and therefore defines the degree to which we are faithful to our values, like our morals, money and personal finances, our sense of self-worth and our basic values, our personal possessions, our monetary prospects, speech, the throat, the nape of the neck, which is the back of it, our ability to provide for ourselves, etc. The colour associated with Taurus is green, primarily, and then yellow and orange. Yellow is the colour of May, because it's the only colour associated with Gemini, the other sign in May. We don't really need to look at the dates, we don't really need to look at the element. We know that it's earth, we know that they're reliable, practical and sensual. We don't need to look at the fact that it's a fixed sign. We know that they're loyal, steadfast and stubborn, and while being resistant to change, have excellent follow through, which could not be further from the fact with Gemini being not only an air sign, so not even in this like reliable, realistic mindset, but being mutable. They're more adaptable, and so have, of all three modalities, the mutable ones have the weakest follow through. That's not to say that a Gemini person can't have excellent follow through. It's just saying that as a broad thing across the four signs that are mutable, compared to the others, they have the weakest follow through. The symbol of Taurus is the bull, a symbol of strength, tenacity, virility, and power. Left alone, they will happily graze, but if bothered, it will charge, which, I mean, I'm going to make a full video about this, but I'm just going to tease it here. I think the bull, and for that reason as well, should be the symbol of Hufflepuff House. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to make a full video about it next month. It's in the cards, okay? Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you want to find out about that. But yeah, similarly to their symbol, a Tauran is generally calm and very peaceful, but if you piss them off, their temper can be wicked. They're persevering and strong individuals who can also be quite bull-headed. The website makes the puns, not me here. They can be dogged and determined when they have a goal in mind. They're also quite sensual and often self-indulgent beasts. They're associated with a number of gemstones, including the emerald, associated with Venus and thought to preserve love, which you've already looked at. The rose quartz, which represents fertility, friendship, and love, and the diamond, which represents strength, commitment, and endurance. The metal associated with Taurus is copper. Copper is also the metal of Venus, and you will see these metals is not like, we're not going to get to one, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's bismuth or arsenic. We're looking at the main 7 alchemical metals. So copper is one, tin's another, quicksilver, those sorts of ones. Gold and silver do come up, but they're associated with the sun and the moon. But yeah, so copper is Venus's. Copper has enhancing properties, much like the sign of Taurus, and is associated with beauty, love, artistry, and sensuality. And this is the only part that I could find that actually links artistic skill to Taurans, and says that, you know, like, they have great follow through and like to work with their hands. Why can't that be in an artistic sense, rather than just like, we build houses, for example? You know, it's not just like construction's the only thing. You can make, you know, sculptures and pottery and ceramics and that sort of stuff, painting, drawing, all of the physical, like, visual arts, sort of. I mean, you could go into playing music, but then you're starting to become you're starting to get a little bit away from using your hands and being like working with the earth. Paints are still derived from the earth. So the glyph for Venus represents the spirit, which is just the circle above the cross. And it's similar to the glyph of Mercury, which we will get to in a second because it's Gemini's. But without the crescent that Mercury has on top of it, and it reflects the evaluation of sensations and experiences through feelings as opposed to rational thoughts. Might as well mention it since I already know. The crescent on top of Mercury has it revelations, I think it was, is what it said. A quick double check here. Where are we? Receptivity. I knew it started with an R. Meaning that one way or other, may people evaluate their feelings, their sensations, and their experiences through their feelings. So they sort of understand on as physical a sense as you can get their thoughts and their emotions and stuff. They process that through how it makes them feel, rather than what it makes them think about themselves. Through Venus, the ruling planet, we learn about our tastes, pleasures, artistic inclinations. Again, Taurans can be artistic. Love, life, money matters, and what makes us happy. Taurus has the peace-loving, sensual, and pleasure-seeking qualities of its ruler. Flowers associated with Taurus are the rose, representing love, beauty, and passion, which is, like, it makes a lot of sense, because the rose is Venus or Aphrodite's favorite flower, which is why it's also seen as a romantic flower. And the poppy is also associated with Taurus, representing rest and imagination. And with Anzac Day being after Taurus starts, and having the poppy be its flower for remembrance, having the poppy, which represents rest, as a Taurus flower, is kind of cool as well. Nice little line up there. And representing rest just means that if you want to see it as sort of that through the lens of what Anzac Day is, and like remembering servicemen and women that have gone to war, particularly for Australia and New Zealand, as that's where the day's celebrated, then representing rest is kind of cool for servicemen and women. The body parts associated with with Taurus, as we said, are the neck and the throat, and they may be sensitive areas for a Taurus. And its key phrase, I don't think the Gemini page has a key phrase on it. I have to double check that. but its key phrase is I have. Now obviously being an earth sign, that could be like I have many possessions or whatever the particular physical possession is, but it could also be emotion. You know, I have respect for you. I have, you know, whatever it might be. Obviously, some other key phrases could be things like I am or I do, and you could fill those in with the same amount of multitudes. Going on to Gemini before my phone decides that I've filmed enough. Mercury is Gemini's planetary ruler. As I said, we were going to be getting to Mercury. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. It's the planet of day-to-day expression and communication, which kind of comes back to having the throat and the neck being Taurus's part. We're now getting communication coming in here, which is also one of the keywords for just air signs in general. But having these ones link up this closely is kind of cool. Lets you sort of fade through from Taurus into Gemini very easily, despite the fact that we're going from a realistic sign to a more conceptual sign, and just the vast difference in force of will or adaptability. So going from either my way or the highway to, you know, everything's an opportunity sort of thing. Mercury's action is to take things apart and put them back together again. It's an opportunistic planet, represented by the fact that Gemini is a mutable sign and so is therefore very adaptable, very opportunistic. But it is decidedly unemotional and curious. This is Mercury. Mercury analyzes, sorts, groups, and makes sense of all things. I think the fact that they take things apart and put them back together again, you could see that as like taking apart a computer or an engine and putting them back together. But you've also got to remember that Gemini is an air sign, so they're very much more thought process sort of thing. So they're probably looking at you know, things that are going to be more mentally challenging. That's not to say that it can't be things like taking apart an engine or a computer, because obviously a lot of thought goes into not just the hardware but the firmware and the software as well, and how it all works together. And so by taking it apart physically, you might be able to better understand it mentally, but it can also be more metaphorical in like representative of relationships and stuff. The symbol for Gemini represents two pillars joined at top and bottom, representing the union of intellect and intuition. First air sign, and it's perfect. Flowers associated are the lily of the valley, which we've already discussed, and represents love, happiness, and humility. And lavender, which represents refinement and elegance. As an air sign, it's intellectual, detached, and fair-minded. That's not really going to have too much of an effect on being a May baby. We've already talked about it being mutable. We've already talked about Mercury's glyph. Its metal is quicksilver. Its gemstones are agate, representing strength, and said to help reduce stress, dizziness, and headaches, particularly useful for Geminis, who are often mentally stimulated. And the emerald, again, representing love as well. The agate was also worn to ward off sickness, madness, and bad weather, and to attract success in friendship. Colour associated, as I've already said, is yellow, connected with optimism, cheerfulness, friendliness, lightheartedness, and freshness. Gemini rules the third house, so houses 2 and 3 are here, which when you add them together, you get Gemini's lucky number, which is 5. And we're in the 5th month, so it's kind of cool there. The anatomy associated with Gemini are the shoulders, arms, hands, fingers, and lungs, bringing us sort of back to the earth sign, where they're very realistic and like to work with their hands, and now we've got shoulders, arms, and hands and fingers all the things that you would use to take things apart and put them back together, as well as lungs, which are connected to the throat and the neck. Meaning that these two can sort of be very upper body centric. We haven't yet gotten to like the heart and the stomach, and those are probably going to be, as we go on through the rest of the signs, we're going to find those things. Gemini is associated with breathing and the power of a positive mindset. It also rules, along with Mercury, connectors and tubes in the body and the nerves. Learning, breathing, or speech difficulties can come under its rule. So Gemini is a quick study of human nature and can be scheming and clever, although whether or not they apply this ability to emotional interactions depends on the rest of their chart. Gemini is often of two minds. They can be quick to irritability, but also easy to make happy again, which we looked at bipolar. We now know why. They are excellent in a debate. They could find important events always seem to come in. They could find that important events always seem to come in two. Monotonous work is avoided, and I think is their key phrase. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload new ones. All links are in the description down below. And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.